was a crisp winter evening in Seattle, 1974. The streets were quiet, almost eerily so. A young woman walked alone across the university campus, her books clutched tightly to her chest, the dim glow of the streetlights casting shadows that danced along the sidewalks. She paused for a moment, shivering in the cold, unaware of the presence lurking just behind her. Footsteps echoed softly at first, then grew deliberate, matching her pace. She turned slightly, glimpsing a man with a friendly smile and an open expression, someone who seemed trustworthy. That smile would soon become a symbol of terror. No one could have imagined the darkness hiding behind that charm. Ted Bundy was 25, a law student admired by his peers. His good looks, polished demeanor, and intelligence gave him an aura of respectability. Teachers spoke highly of him. Friends loved his charisma. He was polite, attentive, seemingly harmless, the kind of man anyone would let into their life without hesitation. But beneath that mask, a ruthless obsession festered. Bundy had a pattern, one he followed meticulously. Young women, often college students who resembled women from his past, became his targets. He studied their routines, noting when they were alone, when they were vulnerable. Among them was Laura, a bright 21-year-old student at the University of Washington, who dreamed of traveling and had a love for photography. That night, she had no idea her life would intersect with a predator in a way she could never imagine. Bundy's approach was methodical. He often feigned injury or weakness, a twisted ankle, a broken arm, a need for help with books or heavy packages. He used these small acts to disarm trust, to create the illusion of kindness. On that winter evening, Laura had just left her dorm, books stacked neatly under her arm. She noticed a man struggling with a pile of textbooks near the library steps. "Do you need a hand with those books?" he asked casually, his voice warm and calm. She smiled politely, unaware of the danger. "Oh, thank you, that's very kind of you," she replied. That moment of trust sealed her fate. In the blink of an eye, the world she knew vanished. Police in Seattle initially struggled to make sense of the rising number of missing persons reports. Young women disappeared without warning, leaving families frantic and communities on edge. At first, each case seemed isolated, a random misfortune, but patterns began to emerge. The missing were almost always college-aged women, last seen alone, often approached by a man described as charming and intelligent. Forensic evidence was minimal and the crimes were spread across neighborhoods, making connections difficult. The city was gripped with fear. Parents warned their daughters. Friends looked over their shoulders. Each disappearance added to the growing sense of panic. As the investigation unfolded, detectives pieced together fragments of evidence, but progress was slow. Then a surviving victim escaped, providing a detailed description of her attacker. This was the breakthrough law enforcement had been waiting for. They arrested Bundy, confident they had captured the man responsible for the string of abductions. But he was cunning, intelligent, and manipulative. He presented himself as cooperative, polite, even remorseful, all while plotting to evade justice. In the months that followed, Bundy escaped custody twice, striking terror into the hearts of the public and humiliating the authorities tasked with keeping him behind bars. The media frenzy that followed each escape was intense. Every newspaper headline, every television segment, painted Bundy as a figure of fascination and horror. His charm made him unnerving. The public could not reconcile the image of a polite, handsome man with the brutal crimes he committed. Investigators worked tirelessly, piecing together timelines, examining clues, and following leads that spanned multiple states. Bundy's crimes were not limited to Washington. As the investigation progressed, they discovered patterns stretching across Utah, Colorado, and Florida. Each new revelation added to the nightmare, proving that Bundy was more dangerous and prolific than anyone had realized. Bundy's methods were chillingly consistent. He would stalk, lure, and abduct with precision. Victims were taken from areas they should have felt safe: college campuses, city streets, even their homes. Some managed to escape, leaving terrified accounts that added crucial pieces to the puzzle. Others were never found until later, their fates discovered through painstaking investigation and, in some cases, confessions. Laura's case, like so many others, began to take shape as investigators learned to anticipate Bundy's movements. But even then, they were always one step behind. In one haunting incident, a young woman named Karen was walking home from a late class when Bundy approached her. He limped slightly, his arm in a makeshift sling, claiming he had been injured while moving furniture. "Could you help me carry this box to my car?" he asked. She hesitated, sensing something off, but before she could refuse, Bundy grabbed her wrist, pulling her into the shadows. Karen struggled, screaming, but managed to break free and run. Her description of the attacker and the car he drove would later become critical evidence. She survived, but the memory haunted her forever. As the cases piled up, the investigators began to see the magnitude of the crimes. Bundy was not just a local predator. He was a serial killer operating across state lines. The shocking truth of his intelligence and meticulous planning made him a formidable adversary. He manipulated the legal system, charmed witnesses, and created diversions, all while continuing to commit heinous acts. The fear in the community was palpable. Parents walked their daughters to campus, friends avoided being alone, and every unconfirmed rumor of a sighting sent waves of panic through the city. The eventual confession by Bundy sent shockwaves across the nation. He admitted to dozens of murders, some dating back years, spanning multiple states and jurisdictions. For law enforcement, it was a horrifying realization. They had been chasing a ghost for far too long, someone who had lived among them, smiling and laughing, while leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. The twist that shocked everyone was how outwardly normal he appeared. A law student admired by peers, polite, intelligent, yet beneath that mask lay a calculating killer who had eluded capture through wit and charm. Bundy's trial became one of the most sensational in American history. Courtrooms were packed with journalists, cameras, and public spectators. Families of victims attended in silence, hoping for justice, while Bundy sat composed, occasionally smirking, as if the world's horror fascinated him rather than disturbed him. The evidence was overwhelming, yet the psychological games he played during testimony captivated the public imagination. Every detail of the crime, every abduction, and every escape was recounted, painting a picture of a man who was both methodical and monstrous. The twist did not end with his confessions. Investigators discovered that Bundy's crimes were more extensive than initially believed. They found patterns connecting him to unsolved cases in states he had traveled to for school, work, and personal reasons. It became clear that the number of victims was staggering and the scale of his manipulations almost unfathomable. Communities across the country began to recognize the terrifying reality. Evil could hide behind the most familiar face. People they trusted, neighbors they waved to, colleagues they admired could carry horrors beyond imagination. Bundy's execution in 1989 marked the end of his physical presence. But the shadow of his crimes remained. For survivors and families, the trauma lingered, a reminder of lives taken too soon and innocence shattered. For investigators, it was a testament to the need for vigilance, persistence, and the importance of recognizing patterns, even when the evidence seemed scarce. The story of Ted Bundy is not just a tale of a killer. It is a story of human vulnerability, the dangers of misplaced trust, and the chilling reality that appearances can deceive. Even today, decades after his death, Bundy's story continues to fascinate and horrify. Psychologists study his behavior, criminologists analyze his methods, and storytellers recount his crimes, each retelling a warning. Trust instincts, question first impressions, and remain aware, because in the shadows of charm, true darkness often waits unseen until it is too late. The streets of Seattle, once bustling and safe, still carry the echoes of those nights. Families remember daughters, sisters, and friends taken too soon. Survivors live with scars that never fully heal, yet their courage brought justice to light. And while Bundy is gone, the lessons of his life and the darkness he concealed remain etched into the fabric of American true crime history. The story of Ted Bundy serves as a chilling reminder that evil can exist in the most unlikely places, behind the most unsuspecting faces, and that vigilance and awareness are the only shields against it.